Welcome people to the first volume of rap albums that were never released, where I'll be talking about exactly what the title says. And to clear up confusion, I mean never released officially. For instance, I've covered Kobe Bryant's rap album on my channel, and that album did end up leaking years later after it was supposed to come out, but it never saw a proper official release with distribution and things like that. This series will also contain planned/scrapped albums that were being worked on at a certain time but ultimately never came out. This also contains different versions of albums that are currently released, with my examples being the different versions of Carter 3 by Lil Wayne and the different versions of Whole Lotta Red by Playboi Carti. Both of those are set to have 3 different versions alone, but those are stories for a whole other day. People really love my lost/found rap media series, so I thought, why not create another series but exclusively on unreleased rap albums. I even brought in my boy Niall from the Culture Crypt for the first episode, so just sit back and enjoy because we got a crazy video for you guys today. If you guys like the content, you guys should like, comment, and subscribe to help the channel grow. I reply to some of the comments and I love going through them and seeing what you guys think. Also, follow my Instagram too, that would be greatly appreciated. You guys can always reach out and just show me some love, it's all good. Also, let me know where you are tuning in from, represent where you're from, comment down below some rap albums that were never released officially so I can talk about them in upcoming volumes. But without further ado, I give you rap albums that were never released, volume 1. This album actually got brought to my attention by a subscriber of mine who DM'd me about this on Instagram, so shout out to Jason for this. You know who you are, it's all love. This really caught my attention because I have a No Limit video coming very soon, and fans of this channel know that I rock with No Limit and Master P, I rock with them crazy. I actually never knew about this album and how coveted it is. Word is that there is a bunch of unreleased material and albums from No Limit, but this arguably takes the cake. The Tank Dogg album was initially supposed to be Fiend, Snoop, C Murder, and Mac, and you can tell this with the cover that we have today. Mystical would be a later addition from what I've seen, and I think that this is evident because of the original cover, but I've seen him edited in on other covers. Upon doing research for this album, I ran across an interview that Fiend did in 2019 with Dirty Glove Bastard, and he talked about the album. He said that he thinks that Snoop has a lot of the songs that they recorded because they recorded a lot of stuff at his mansion. This was around 1998, 1999-ish. Fiend also said that the lawyer that was working for No Limit Records at the time may have some files along with Beats by the Pound, which was the in-house production team for No Limit for a period of time. I've seen that this album was allegedly supposed to release in 1999 or maybe 2000, but as we know, it never did end up happening. What's interesting is that according to multiple people like Master P, Fiend, and even C Murder, the album is actually complete. We don't have the full album, but we do have a couple songs with the Tank Dogg name, such as True Tank Dogs, which features Mystical off of Snoop Dogg's debut No Limit album, The Game Is To Be Sold, Not To Be Told. We also have Tank Dogs featuring Fiend and C Murder off of Mac's debut No Limit album. Those are a few examples, but yeah, it's really unfortunate that we never got this album. I don't know the chances of us ever getting this album. It's definitely out there somewhere, and multiple people seem to have access to it, or some songs that could or could have been on the album. I just know an album with Fiend, Snoop, C Murder, Mystical, and Mac in 1999 would have been crazy. Allen Iverson is definitely one of my favorite basketball players of all time, without a doubt. I mean, everything from his style and how he played just makes him a legend and an icon on and off the court. I caught him in his Nuggets days since I was very young when he was on the Sixers, but I used to rock that Nuggets Iverson jersey heavy, and I'm about to get a Sixers Iverson jersey really soon to add to my collection. I used to have a crazy jersey collection in high school, but I gave away a lot of that stuff. But you know, I'm kind of rebuilding it. It is what it is. But many people probably already know about this album, but some people may not. And this entry is really interesting. I'm pretty sure people have heard the phrase, rappers want to be ball players and ball players want to be rappers. This phrase couldn't be anything further from the truth because we've seen so many different examples of this. We've seen Shaq in the 90s go platinum with his rap album, and Kobe Bryant made a rap album back in the day, which I actually covered in the second volume of my Lost/Found rap media series, which you should definitely go check out that volume in the whole series while you're at it. I'll put a link in the description for you guys. We've also seen people like Sheck West trying to play basketball overseas, and even J. Cole right now playing basketball. And keep in mind, these are just a few examples because there are plenty more. The story goes that AI would ink a deal with Universal Records at the turn of the century, and he would also drop the single 40 bars under the moniker Jules, and this got him into some hot water, especially with the NBA. If you separate AI from the lyrics as one of the most popular NBA players at the time, then the rap lyrics in this song would fit right into this era of the early 2000s. But that's the thing though, because unlike a rapper, Allen Iverson was one of the most popular NBA players out there, and he was representing a whole league that was very, and when I mean very against the stuff that he was rapping about. If you haven't heard the song, you can easily look it up on YouTube, but the lyrics were deemed violent, misogynistic, and homophobic. Hearing the 40 bars track is really interesting to me because it's actually not that bad, and out of all the NBA players who tried to rap, I would say that Allen Iverson is definitely one of the best. On the flip side, it's definitely weird when you hear him talking about killing people and they'll be sleeping where the maggots be and how he knows killers and much more. Here's what the then commissioner of the NBA, which was David Stern, had to say about Allen Iverson. The lyrics that have been attributed to Allen Iverson's soon-to-be released rap CD are coarse, offensive, and antisocial. Whatever constitutional rights of free speech an individual may have, there is no constitutional right to participate in the NBA, and I have the power to disqualify players who engage in offensive conduct, including inappropriate speech. Allen Iverson has done a disservice to himself, the Philadelphia 76ers, his teammates, and perhaps all of the NBA. Allen Iverson would then go on to meet with David Stern and various civil rights leaders in October of 2000 ahead of the planned 2001 release of the album and agreed to change some of the more offensive lyrics. He also retitled the album Misunderstood because the album was originally titled Nonfiction. Another little tidbit about the album is that Allen Iverson actually wanted rap legend Cudi rap on the album because that was one of his favorite rappers growing up. But ultimately, Allen Iverson said that he was burned out by the controversy surrounding the album and ultimately scrapped it. Now in 2010, a leak of the album was released to the public. I was trying to look up information on if this was like legit the album that we were supposed to get in 2001, but from what I've seen, there is no confirmation on whether this is the actual album or not. I guess that like I'll get comments in the comment section, but upon listening to some of it, I have like no clue if this was actually the album that we were supposed to get way back then. One thing for a fact is that we'll never see an official release to this album due to its nature and Allen Iverson even being embarrassed about the album. Definitely let me know in the comments if you want to know more about this album and Allen Iverson's rap career, because like I ran across so much information, and if I see like the interest, I will definitely be down to make a full video about Allen Iverson's rap career for you guys.
Thank you, Dre, Clout Cancun, for letting me be a part of this video, man. I'm Niall, I'm a music journalist, I'm a music PR, writer, all-round just rap nerd. I have my own brand, The Culture Crypt, which you can check out on Instagram at The Culture Crypt, all one word, right now. We've been a bit dormant at the moment, but we've got some content coming, and if you give us a follow, that would be greatly appreciated. Anyway, a story I wanted to get into was the story of the original version of Clipse's sophomore album, classic, Hell Hath No Fury. Now, in the rap dictionary we have today, Hell Hath No Fury stands as a cult classic from not only the Neptunes from a production standpoint, but also Pusha T and Malice from a rap standpoint. Recording for Hell Hath No Fury commenced in fall 2002. Around this time, Clipse were on their Lord Willing tour, accompanied by Young Bloods, Lady May, Rob Jackson, and Midwicked as supporting acts. Now, right when the tour wrapped up around August 13th in Washington DC, Clipse were thinking, man, let's get to work on this second album, man. And so they did. Clipse began recording Hell Hath No Fury throughout 2002 into 2003 and set a slated release date for December 16th, 2003. Now, not much is actually known about the original track list and version of Hell Hath No Fury Clipse had circa 2003, 2004, but there is one thing we did know. Clipse had major record label beef. Work on Hell Hath No Fury was halted in 2004 when Arista Records, Clipse's label at the time, was dissolved into their sister label Jive as a part of a merger between Sony Music Entertainment and BMG. Star Trek Entertainment moved on up to Interscope Records, but due to contractual issues, the group was forced to stay with Jive. Whilst working on the album, Clipse tentatively resumed work in 2004 and much of 2005. In the lengthy 4-year gap between Clipse's debut record and their sophomore album, that we obviously know as Hell Hath No Fury, Clipse weren't just dormant though. They were very, very busy releasing their critically acclaimed mixtape series We Got It For Cheap, specifically parts 1 and 2, in 2004 and 2005 respectively. Alongside this, Clipse were also doing lots of features and soundtrack work to get their paychecks, and one track of theirs we know from around the Hell Hath No Fury era was Pussycat. This track was set to be the lead single for Hell Hath No Fury and was in a slight different direction to tracks like Grindin' and Virginia that we heard on their debut. So, after sitting with the song for a while, Clipse decided that Pussycat would fit better on the Barbershop 2 movie soundtrack. Fortunately though, a remix of Pussycat did later appear on the We Got It For Cheap mixtape series. Listening to a lot of Pusha T and Malice's lyrics from around 2003 to 2006, you can hear a lot of Clipse's dismay for their label. This was no different on the We Got It For Cheap mixtapes, and they gave some insight into the original version of Hell Hath No Fury on Volume 1 of We Got It For Cheap. Another track that was plucked for the mixtape was also called Stuntin' Y'all, and Stuntin' Y'all, which features Pharrell, was also slated to be a single for the original version of Hell Hath No Fury also. So with Pussycat and Stuntin' Y'all, we can build a world of what the record could have potentially sounded like. A lot of these OG Hell Hath No Fury cuts do sound a lot more club oriented and in line with the crunk party rap sound that was really dominating at this point in the rap chronology. What's interesting is tracks like Pussycat and Stuntin' Y'all are musically worlds apart from the final 12 tracks we did get on Hell Hath No Fury. Hell Hath No Fury as an album, if you were to describe it, is street level, gritty, minimalistic, with big thumping drums and bass lines, and actually sounds a lot different from the popular Neptune's music at the time. What's really interesting to hear these early tracks is you can get an idea of how Clipse eventually molded their sound and perfected it with Hell Hath No Fury later on in 2006. Now, with that being said, we must cast our minds back to an archived 2003 MTV article. In this MTV article, Clipse talk about their forthcoming album, Hell Hath No Fury, and they state there's a track called Mama I'm So Sorry, a track which today we are actually familiar with on the final version of the album. But wait, the original version of Mama I'm So Sorry originally featured guest vocals from none other than R. Kelly. Speaking with MTV in 2003, Pusha T said, R. Kelly. When I heard the song, I was like, damn, I think I need to get R. Kelly on this. We sort of took him out of his element though. Malice then interjected with, Lord Willin' was very mixtape-ish, that kind of vibe, spitting hot verses over hot beats. This one is more song-oriented. Push then concluded with, it's not just, I was sitting on the corner yesterday and I was blah-de-blah-de-blah. It's dealing with a lot more issues. Being young and black and having a successful year, the best way to describe it is a Virginia corner boy meets Miami Vice. This album sounds like a soundtrack. Although Hell Hath No Fury is a classic in its own right, It's always crazy to ponder what the original version of the album would sound like with an R. Kelly collaboration, with the more club-oriented beats, and Push, of course, claiming that this album is more on a song-oriented basis. Although it's highly unlikely, we wonder if we'll ever hear the OG version of this album if Push, Malice, or the Neptunes decide to ever put it out. I mean, hey, exclusive audio footage in the UK at least was added to streaming services recently, so there's hope.
When it comes to unreleased rap albums, this is an album I see quite a lot, and it's for a good reason. I mean, look at the two people attached to the project. But the story goes for this that around 1992-ish, NWA would break up. Ice Cube would leave around 1989, and Dr. Dre would leave around 1992. While Ice Cube was pursuing a solo career after leaving NWA, there was some disses between him and the remaining members of NWA. What's interesting though is that when Ice Cube went solo, he still wanted Dre to produce his beats, and this is what Cube said about it in an interview. So when I went solo, I was like, I wanted Dr. Dre to do America's Most Wanted, but Jerry Heller vetoed that. So since he vetoed that stuff, and I'm pretty sure Easy didn't want Dre to do it, but Dre did want to do it. We gotta put that on record. Dre wanted to do my record, but it was just too crazy with the breakup of NWA. So as you can see, Ice Cube said that Dre wanted to make some stuff with him, but Jerry Heller and also allegedly Eazy-E didn't want Dre to do it. Interestingly enough though, in 1993, when Dre was working with Death Row and post The Chronic during an episode of Yo MTV Raps, he said that him and Ice Cube were working on an album. During the time of the interview, Dre actually said that Ice Cube was supposed to come over later that day. The at the time plan, according to Dre, was that Ice Cube was going to have 2 solo cuts on the album, and Dre was going to have 2 solo cuts on the album as well. The rest of the album they were going to do together, and it was going to be about 10 or 11 songs on the album. When asked about the name of the album, there wasn't really like a name yet, and Dre joked about flipping a coin between like the naming of the album being Dr. Dre and Ice Cube or Ice Cube and Dr. Dre. Snoop Dogg was there when Dr. Dre was asked about the Cube collab, and Snoop said that he was going to be on the album. Then Dr. Dre would say that people like Snoop and the people a part of Dr. Dre's own camp would be a part of his solo songs on the album, while Cube and his people would be involved in his solo songs on the album. The rest of the album would of course be them together. The following year in 1994, we would see the release of the song Natural Born Killers, which had Dr. Dre and Ice Cube on it, and this was the first single to feature Dr. Dre and Ice Cube since their NWA days. In the liner notes for the album Murder Was the Case, Natural Born Killers was said to be the first single from the Dr. Dre and Ice Cube collab album. We know today that this album would never happen, and when Ice Cube was asked about why this album never happened, he simply responded because of Eminem and 50 Cent. Now me personally, I heard this and I instantly was wondering, how the heck could this even be? We're not even going to add 50 Cent into like the equation, because 50 Cent didn't come into the picture with Dr. Dre and Eminem until like around like 2002. And not that long ago, I did a whole video about Dr. Dre's album 2001, which you should definitely go check out by the way. And in that video, I talked about how Dre didn't meet Eminem until 1997. So this leaves me with the question of how exactly did Eminem and 50 Cent affect Helter Skelter? I can maybe understand Eminem, but you also have to keep in mind that Dre and Ice Cube have been working on Helter Skelter since like 1992, 1993, and their first single was released in 1994, which would still leave about a 3-year gap until Dre even met Eminem. If you want to know more about Dr. Dre's life during this time period, I would definitely recommend watching that video I did on 2001, but still, I feel like they had years to work on this project before people like Eminem and 50 Cent even came into the picture. I've seen reports that initially Helter Skelter was set to hit records in January of 1995, but in an interview Dre did in 1994, he said that the album was supposed to come out in the summer of 1995. But then also upon doing further research, I saw that plans for the album were being stalled due to Ice Cube leaving to South Africa to film the 1997 movie dangerous ground. You also have to add in Dr. Dre's hectic schedule as well. Ice Cube would say that Eminem would pop, then 50 Cent would pop, and then after that it was The Game, and all that put the album on the back burner. I did do some digging, and in 2003, Ice Cube was actually working on getting signed to Aftermath, which is under Dr. Dre, and I don't think that this ever came to fruition. In an interview during that year, he said that maybe in 2004, we would see an album by him produced by Dr. Dre, but I don't think that he was referring to Helter Skelter because he kind of presented it like a solo album by him, which was produced by Dr. Dre. Something else that I found out about this album that was rather interesting was that the DOC would actually release an album entitled Helter Skelter in January of 1996. The DOC has actually spoke out about this album before, and he's not too fond of it due to him saying that he was in a lot of pain while recording this album. But here is what the DOC had to say about the Dre situation. I wrote a song. Dre started working on an album. He wanted to work on an album with Cube, and it was supposed to be called Helter Skelter. And he gave me all these books to read, apocalyptic books. He wanted me to get started for him, so I did. I wrote this one song which I really liked, and when I played it for him, he immediately wanted to take it. And those kinds of things just hurt. I got tired of putting all of the work in, but not being able to benefit, not being able to even get the love from it from the fans. These guys never told MFers how hard I was working. When Doggy Style came out and they wanted to move to, now we're going to start working on the album with Ice Cube, and I'm thinking I'm putting in all this energy, this effort, but I can't see how I'm going to win. How is this going to feed a future family of mine? Some people even say that the DOC took a lot of the lyrics that he had wrote for Dre and used it for his version of Helter Skelter. One of the last things I want to mention is that there are some tracks out there that are rumored to initially have been a part of the Helter Skelter project, but to me, the most interesting one that I want to note was that allegedly the instrumental to the Tupac song Can't See Me off of his album All Eyes on Me was meant for Helter Skelter. Just imagine that if that's actually true. I've also seen pictures of Helter Skelter being promoted on the back of Snoop Dogg's album Doggy Style. Y'all let me know if that's real or not. I can go on and on about this section, but I definitely do think that the stuff for this album is out there somewhere, but I don't think that we'll ever officially get the album Helter Skelter. So the sort of first inklings that we got of what was in store for Kid Cudi's sophomore album and albums to come was when Kid Cudi did an interview in August of 2009, and he would say, yes, it's definitely a trilogy. Man on the Moon, The Ghost in the Machine is the second album, and we're still working on the title for the third Man on the Moon. Once the story is told, I'm done, unless something else happens to me. Once I'm done with the third album, I'm just gonna do collabs. The original name for his sophomore album, as we heard, was originally going to be called Man on the Moon, The Ghost in the Machine. He also literally said this a couple of weeks before his debut album even came out, so he already had a plan in mind for a whole trilogy within the series. A month after his debut album came out though, there were reports of Kid Cudi doing a project entitled Cudder. In an interview with MTV, Cudi had this to say about the project. Cudder is basically an album of me working with artists that have inspired me or artists that have helped me grow and people who I've always admired. So far, we've got Snoop, Travis Barker, trying to get Green Day on board, hopefully Kings of Leon, hopefully. I'm really trying to do all the collabs that I couldn't do for the Man on the Moon album, and then some, because the album was so themed that I had to strip a lot of the features. We're going to have clips on this compilation, Robin Thicke. Hopefully we're going to get into the studio. I just did a record for his upcoming album. It's amazing. Kid Cudi will also say this in the same interview. On the Rat-a-Tat song, you can hear Rat-a-Tat and you can hear me. We don't compromise each other. That's the same thing I want to do with anybody I work with. I don't want it to be like a Green Day song with me rapping over it. What I want to do is have the triangle effect. Have Green Day involved and have them co-produce with someone like a Rat-a-Tat or my producers, do like a joint thing, and then we all create from the ground up. That way it's like a fusion of each sound and each inspiration. So originally, the project was entitled Cudder, but then Cudi would later change it to be named Cudder and the Revolution of Evolution. A few months went by, and then there was a change of plans. Cudi would post a blog and he said that he scrapped Cudder in favor for a project that is more personal. He would say, "A lot of you have read the news and think they know Cudi. Got slick stuff to say amongst your peers or just flat out hate me, but haven't the slightest clue of who I am. I will tell the story of Mr. Rager." So now this is where the name of what would become his sophomore album came from. Cudi was now going to tell the story of Mr. Rager. Kid Cudi would do an interview with Complex and was asked when he decided to switch from Cudder to Man on the Moon to The Legend of Mr. Rager. And he would say, "When I started making records like Erase Me, I wanted this album to be fun. But the dark stuff was my life at that time. I was fighting, not writing that stuff. It got frustrating writing a collab album. I just lost interest, and it became more of a task rather than something I wanted to do. That's not how it's supposed to feel. The day it becomes work, you need to retire." The main reason why I put this album on the list, besides me being a big Kid Cudi fan, is that it's rumored that this album was supposed to be more rap focused. We know this album never came out, but I definitely think that the material for it is out there somewhere laying around on like a hard drive or something. We'll probably never get this album though, and it would be interesting to listen to the period Kid Cudi had in between his debut and sophomore album.